You see, Sean Martin, when I get my hands around your neck at the Regal Rumble, I'm gonna look straight into your eyes. I'm gonna see the panic. I'm gonna see the pain. I'm gonna see the fear. And that fear, that might be good for you. A little bit of fear might keep you out of trouble next time. Because if you stick your nose in my business one more time, I am gonna choke slam you straight to hell.
Oh, the clock on my embalming room wall is ticking down.
Hi there. It's Royal Rumble season. So I figured I'd take a break from talking about Wizards of the Coast and the OGL drama to do something a little different and maybe a little bit fun. Today we're going to talk about this game, WorldWide Wrestling RPG. Only one player in my group is a legit wrestling fan, and the rest of us probably followed it back maybe in the golden era of the 80s and 90s, or in the case of my wife, never. But everyone was willing to give this game a shot. It ended up being a lot of fun. This is the first edition of the game that I showed you, and there is a second edition available now. The author, Nathan D. Paletta, actually gives a discount on your honor, I believe, if you upgrade from first edition to second, which is commendable. The game isn't really that different between the two editions. It's just that there's a little bit more added to the second edition, and it's cleaned up a little bit, both in presentation and in the art. So I know what you're asking. How do you play a game about pro wrestling, which is scripted, that has any suspense at all? Well, there actually is suspense in this game. And there's meaningful dice rolls built around a game that encourages a lot of creativity from its participants. As should be familiar to most of you, one player is the GM. In this game, it's called Creative. As in any other RPGs, they help create the promotion, or the world, if you will, the company, and they set the scenes, keep the action going, and also play the NPCs, or in this case, the NPWs, non-playing wrestlers. What kind of promotion you have is entirely up to your group. It can be anything from local, regional, or national. The players are, of course, the talent, the wrestlers. Each of them picks one of the tried and true wrestling gimmicks. There's 15 of them to choose from, and then they just sort of personalize them around their own individual tastes. These will be familiar to wrestling diehards, and even folks with just a tangential knowledge. You have the anti-hero, the call-up, the jobber, who's supposed to lose all the time, the clown, the hardcore, the luchador, the monster, and so on and so on. There are only 4 stats you use for the main roles during the game. Body, which is your physical prowess. Look, which is your charisma, which kind of helps when you're cutting a promo. Real, which is how you can kind of blur the line between what's kayfabe or fake and what's real. And finally, work, which is your actual wrestling skill inside the squared circle, as they say. You also pick whether your wrestler is a good guy, a babyface, or a heel, the villain. When you hit certain milestones called advances, you'll be able to improve your wrestler as time goes on. The players succeed or fail by performing moves, both inside the ring and outside the ring, properly blurring the line between sports and entertainment. The base mechanic is to roll 2d6 and add the relevant stat. The higher the better. You can print out each move in the form of a card, which I highly recommend. It tells you what you gain or lose based on your roll. Some moves are actual in-ring wrestling moves, but there's also moves to cut a promo, to break kayfabe, to do a run-in, and many, many more. The goal of the game is to get your wrestler popular enough that the audience always wants to see them. This is tracked in each wrestler's audience score, which goes from 0 to +4. If you're the first one to get past +4, you earn the top spot in the promotion, which gives you some perks. But don't get too comfortable. You may not be there for long. Your audience scores rise and fall depending on your actions and roles during the game. You gain audience mainly by hitting your finishing moves and by wrestling against foes that you have a lot of heat with. Heat is your kayfabe, or maybe in-game real hatred of another wrestler. You can lose audience by botching your finishing move or doing something that creative thinks is detracting from the promotion. You can build up heat with another wrestler by doing the cut a promo move, highlighting your beef with them. You can also get it by playing your role as a heel and doing something dastardly, inside or outside the ring, as well as being true to your babyface role and acting like a hero with honor. Finally, you gain and sometimes give heat by rolling well on that finishing move to end a match. All right, so now it's probably a good time to go over how a session plays out, because it's a little different than your normal role-playing game. Generally, creative is going to have a card made up ahead of time of who's wrestling who, with maybe some flexibility built in. The player wrestlers may end up wrestling each other that night. They may each wrestle an NPW. They may be part of a tag team match. Or maybe they're injured and are just sitting that night out. All the players should, however, get a chance to cut a promo at some point during the session and even help do the color commentary of a match, not involving their own wrestler. And they can do that in the persona of their own wrestler or maybe as a retired luminary. The in-ring action is handled by narration. One player takes control of the match and narrates the move that they're performing. There are illustrated pages showing the standard moves, which I highly recommend you have handy for the players to reference. The opponent, who does not have control, whether it's another player or an NPW controlled by creative, has some input, while they don't have control. Maybe describing how they're trying to get out of a move or, playing to the audience. But eventually, the player with control will declare that they're going to try and hit their spot and bring off the move successfully. And they will roll the appropriate in-ring move to see how that goes. Depending on that, they may keep control of the match and gain some momentum, which are actually just bennies that you can use to add to dice rolls. Or they may forfeit control to their opponent, who then repeats the process. Forfeiting control is not bad. It's sort of expected. You do your thing for a while, and then to keep interest up, your opponent has to be able to do theirs. You can also work the audience during this, maybe insulting or sucking up to the fans to maybe gain some cheap momentum. The match goes on this way until there's a natural point where it's clear that it should probably end. Generally, I found that each wrestler should at least have control of the match 2 times before it's wrapped up. When this point is reached, creative declares who is booked to win. The wrestlers generally will go along with this. However, they can play their babyface or heel role to the max in order to book themselves the winner of the match. The heel by cheating and the babyface by maybe exposing cheating or something like that. This is treated as having been the plan all along, and everybody accepts it and just kind of moves on. The matches are narrated for the entertainment of the table by creative, who's kind of playing the role of play-by-play announcer, and 1 or 2 of the players who do the color commentary. This can lead to some pretty funny stuff. The ubiquitous table was brought out in one of our matches, and my friend Gavin was doing the color commentary. Out of nowhere, he broke out with, and those are tough tables made by Anderson tables. If you had an important gathering in your life, it took place around an Anderson table. That had us chuckling to no end. There can also be run-ins from other wrestlers during the match, which is a separate move and can get you some good heat with another wrestler. The player who's helping announce the match can also put over one of the wrestlers by bumping up a failed roll to a partial success or a partial success to a full success. You can also roleplay aspects of being on the road and doing things like radio interviews, conventions, and a bunch of other things. As your wrestlers do well, so does the promotion. When a certain aggregate audience score is hit, the promotion goes up to a new level, unlocking some cool things for itself. This resets everybody's audience score back to their base, because now you have a whole new set of fans to win over. In general, we like this game as a change of pace quite a bit. I'd say we played it about 5 or 6 sessions, which seemed just about right. It opened up a lot of creativity in everyone, and it even led some of us back to being fans of a sport we hadn't really followed since we were a lot younger. Are there any downsides? Well, if you absolutely hate wrestling, this probably isn't going to change your mind. There are a few things I might have changed up. For instance, Creative also has moves that they make hard and soft, like swerving the storyline or having the audience turn on a wrestler. But calling everything you can do in the game a move, it can be a bit confusing at times. I've just preferred they kept those as separate things Creative has power over. There's also a page on using the X card, or in this case, the X move, which real wrestlers make when they're actually real life injured in the ring. Now, if you know anything about me or this channel, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of the X card or safety tool concept. But nothing else along those lines seems to have seeped into the game itself. It's written by someone who obviously loves wrestling, and made a wrestling RPG in probably the best way you could. I think this is an underserved market, actually, sports RPGs. It used to be that jocks didn't go near this kind of stuff. I mean, now you have half the Cleveland Browns involved in a D&D game. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing more games built around these non-traditional subjects like this starting to pop up. Overall, I liked WorldWide Wrestling, and we will play this RPG again. Tell me what you guys think, though. Is this a hard pass for you, or would you give a game like this a chance? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for now. Until we meet again, you guys take care and have a great, great rest of your day. Goodbye.
What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.
Oh, how cute. Talking about a make-believe game about sweaty grown men rolling around together in a make-believe sport. How about I cut a promo now? I was prepared to move on after the last time I broke into your channel, but then you had to go whine like a little baby to all your friends on YouTube, didn't you? Well, I got news for you, bucko. New invasion angle storyline. I'm gonna make you live in fear from now on. You won't know where or when I'll strike. I'll always be lurking in the shadows. And the women's changing room at the water park, but that's not your concern. I'll be there, on the edges of your mind. And no amount of blubbering will change that. Mark this day. You're mine, old man. All mine. Ha ha ha.